Hey everyone, and welcome back to Game Gear TV. In this video, I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing the new Scuf Prestige controller for Xbox One. Now, I've been using an Microsoft Xbox Elite controller for several years now. I absolutely have loved it. My controller, however, has developed a pretty bad case of stick drift in the left thumbstick, so I figured it was a great time to go ahead and try something from Scuf. This is actually my first Scuf controller, so I'm looking forward to trying it out. I've seen some horror stories already about this controller out there on forums and comments and everything else, but I want to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and unbox it. Now, this came directly from Scuf, and my little tapes holding the outer cover of the box are already torn, so that's kind of weird. So the outside of the box just has some, fairly standard information about the controller. The inner main box actually has a fairly nice feeling texture to it. It has the Scuf logo right there in the middle. So let's go ahead and get this thing open here and see what we have. Maybe. Okay, there we go. There we have it. So I went with the light gray colored shell, black thumbsticks, and I went with the blue rings on the inside of the thumbsticks. Feels very, very light, actually. It feels pretty similar in weight, I think, to a normal controller. We got our 4 paddles across the back. So coming into this, one of the things I'm kind of worried about for me is I've gotten so used to using the Elite style paddles that come in off the grips. So I think I'm going to have an adjustment period of getting used to these paddles going down the middle. But right there feels pretty good. So we'll come back to looking at the actual controller itself here in a second. Let's see what else we have in the box. I can do this without destroying this thing. Okay. Come on. Work with me. Okay. Maybe. This thing's sticking my butt. That's pretty nice right there. Okay, well, the charging cable feels to be fairly high quality. Sad that it's still micro USB, but looks good. It's got a little tie. Comes with 2 extra thumbsticks. Okay, so I went with a medium thumbstick and a short thumbstick, which I think is actually the same size as what's on the controller by default, but I'll double check that. Let's see what we have in here. This magnetic key for changing our button mapping around, and then this little guy to adjust the tension of the trigger hair locks. That's just talks about how to remap the paddles, and a, I guess, reasonably nice manual here. Okay, now we have everything unboxed. Let's have a closer look at the controller. So, one of the first things that I notice about this Prestige controller coming from Microsoft's Elite controller is it's very light. It's about as light as your standard 1S style controller. I think on Scuf's website it's just a little bit heavier with all 4 paddles installed than the S controller, but it's fairly comparable just holding it, and so it feels significantly lighter than an Elite controller. So one of Scuf's big marketing pieces for the Prestige controller is how many ways you can customize it visually. So when you jump on Scuf's website, there's an entire builder for Prestige controllers where you can choose the color of the faceplate, the color of the sticks, and your button kits. They have these little rings on the inside edge around the thumbsticks, and you can change the colors of those. You can also change the height of your thumbsticks and the shape of the thumbsticks. So there's a lot of visual customization that goes on there, and it can make your price range from the standard price to fairly expensive depending on what all you do. So with that color customization thing, the piece that goes right along with that is the ability to change. So in the past with Scuf's Elite controllers based off of Microsoft's Elite controllers, you could get custom paintworks and all those sorts of things, but once you bought it, you were fairly well stuck. So if you're familiar with Scuf's Vantage controller for PS4, they introduced this magnetic faceplate system where you can swap out the faceplates. And so they included that here on the Prestige. And so you can pop off your faceplate and you see your internals. And then you're able to either just swap this out with the new one you buy. You can also swap out the color of the rings on here. So you can change the outward colors of the faceplate there. You can also buy different colored thumbsticks and different height and shaped thumbsticks as well. And they just pop off like they would on a standard Xbox One S controller. So you have that there, and when you're ready to put it back together, it just attaches with a magnet. And you just pop it right back on the thumbsticks. Good to go. So that's a pretty cool way to customize, the visual appeal of the controller. It reminds me of the Xbox 360 when you could change out the faceplate on that and do all sorts of cool, fun designs and things. So I like that. As far as the rest of the controller goes, at the moment, I do believe those are all the color customization options. So once you get onto the back side, your bumpers and your thumbsticks and the grip at the moment are all just straight black is your choice. Now, it's very comfortable controller to hold. The rubber on these grips is a lot tackier than the rubber on either a customized like Design Lab controller or the rubber that's on the Series 1 current gen Xbox Elite controller. So it has a nice stickiness to it. Feels really good in my hands. Visuals aside though, Scuf first and foremost markets themselves as a performance brand. They're performance controllers for performance players, pro players that need, the absolute most out of their controller. And that's how they market this. And they do have some nice touches to back up those marketing claims a little bit. Like I said, they have the good grips on the controller itself. Material on the thumbsticks themselves are tackier than what you would find on a standard Xbox controller, so you have a little bit more control and precision over the thumbsticks while you're moving than you might otherwise. And then they have their paddle system. I'm going to talk about the paddle system more in a minute. But for now, let's jump on the trigger lock system. So much like the Elite controller from Microsoft, Scuf has a trigger lock system. And that's activated with these little tabs right here. And then you turn that on, and it shortens the amount of pull it takes to get the trigger to activate. Now, if you look at the Elite controller Series 1, you have two options for trigger locks, either on or off, and there's no in between. And in the upcoming Series 2, there's going to be 3 stages of the trigger lock to give a little bit more control. But Scuf's solution was to have this little key here, and there's just very small holes right here that have little Allen screws in them, and you just pop this sucker in, and then you can tighten it or loosen it to customize even more how much range this has before it activates. Now, at first glance, that's actually pretty cool because you have just that much more range that you can work with, but there presents a couple problems. One is it's not as accurately repeatable. So what I mean by that is If you adjust it and then you're like, I wanted to do something a little different today, and you turn it back, it'll be a little harder to get it to the exact same spot as you had it before, because there's no way of indicating exactly where that is. The other thing I've noticed with this implementation of the system is, depending on how tight this is, you can actually completely disable your trigger and your bumpers. So I was playing Apex the other day, and I had it set to be pretty rapidly firing on my right trigger, and my bumper still worked. Well, I switched games and I was playing Assassin's Creed, and then all of a sudden I couldn't use my right bumper for my light attacks. And it was kind of weird, because when I was mounted on horseback, I could attack with the right bumper, but as soon as I got out on foot, it was no longer working. And so that's just something that you'll have to kind of play with whatever games you're playing. You may be able to use all the buttons fully functional on one game, switch to another game, and have to back off the tension a little bit to actually get the buttons to work. So to me, that's just kind of a sign of that this is a third-party controller. If this was a first-party controller from Microsoft, I would expect them to, one, Microsoft doesn't do that, but if they did implement a system like that, I would expect them to implement it in such a way that within whatever range I can adjust the tension, that all the buttons would maintain their functionality. Okay, let's talk about the paddle system that Scuf uses. So similar to the Elite controller, Scuf has 4 paddles on the back of the controller. One big difference right off the bat between Scuf's implementation and the Elite is Scuf has all 4 paddles across the middle section in a vertical fashion, whereas the Elite has 2 paddles on each side, and they're right on the grip. So pros and cons to both setups. With the Elite controller, all 4 paddles are immediately accessible without having to move your fingers at all, but if you grip your controller very hard, you may accidentally activate a button. So with Scuf's implementation, your 2 outermost paddles, your fingers pretty much just rest right there naturally, and so I'll have, like for most shooter games, I have my jump and crouch assigned to these outside, and then reloads and weapon switches on the inners. The biggest downside I've noticed from this paddle orientation is if you need to use the middle 2 paddles, you have to adjust your finger position, and maybe it's just, my hand size or whatever, but when I reach for these inner paddles, I don't feel like I'm able to activate the paddle as easy as I can on an Elite. So take a game like Apex, for instance, where I might be looting a bunch of stuff in one little room, or a bunch of ammo boxes, and I'm just wanting to spam the X paddle to pick all that up as quickly as possible. So it may sound like I'm able to activate it fairly quick here on camera, but when I'm actually playing a game and I'm trying to move and aim and look at the things I'm trying to pick up at the same time, it's not nearly as smooth or comfortable to do that, and I've found myself a lot just going ahead and reaching over and doing that. Whereas with the Elite controller, because of the paddle placements, I'm able to loot a lot faster. So for me anyway, the paddle system on the Scuf is slower to use. One big bonus about Scuf's paddle system is these paddles are solid on there. You're not going to drop your controller or be flinging it around and lose paddles like I have on my Elite controller. They're very well secured on there. They slide. They have little rails that they slide in and out of. So you can remove and customize to your heart's content however many paddles you actually want. If you break a paddle, Scuf does sell replacements. So that's nice, and it does look pretty cool. So it's a solidly built system. By default, the paddles are programmed to function as AXYB, but you can also reprogram to act as some of the other face buttons as well. And to do the reprogramming, Scuf includes this little magnetic key, and you simply put that on the back of your controller, hold down the paddle that you're wanting to assign the new key to, and then you would press and hold for a couple seconds the key that you want it to mimic. It'll just make that remap, and then you'll be good to go. So the remapping is fairly quick and painless. Just don't lose that magnetic key, but if you do, Scuf sells more. Other than that, we have a micro USB port to charge the internal battery. Scuf claims that the battery will last up to 30 hours. I haven't had an issue with it running out of juice, and it seems to be lasting quite a while, and so no complaints on battery life there at the moment. I can't say how quickly it will degrade over time or if it'll have issues. But at the moment, it seems to be a very good battery with a long charge. So all in all, the Scuf Prestige is a well-built controller. It feels good. It feels like it's well-made. It looks good. And it's a solid performer. The paddle system works. It's not necessarily as comfortable to me as what I'm used to, but it's fully functional, and you get the benefit of having paddles, so you don't have to use the face buttons. The thumbsticks have a really good tackiness to them and a nice tension feeling. So is this the best performance controller out there, or at least the best value? I'd have to say no. The base Prestige controller is $160, and that's bare stock, which, let's face it, if you're going to buy a controller like this, you're probably going to want to customize it a little bit. And as soon as you start doing anything to this, changing the color of the faceplates or the rings or the thumbsticks, you're going to be jacking the price up $15, $20, $30, and the value proposition for a dollar perspective just goes right out the window. I think it does perform well, but I don't think it performs any better than my old go-to in the Elite controller. For me, and maybe it's just because it's what I'm used to, I like the Elite controller's paddle system more. I like that I have immediate access to all 4 paddles. The Elite controller does have some other nice features. The thumbsticks pop right off magnetically, so you don't have to take off the faceplate, even though it's easy to do on the Prestige. Still quicker to change a thumbstick here. Swap out D-pads. The Elite controller has the profile selector. You can switch between 2 different profiles, have everything pre-saved. Another advantage that the Elite controller has is it comes with software support. So you can get into your Xbox Accessories app and change the response curve, the sensitivity. You can remap all of the buttons from there. It's a little more cumbersome as far as button remapping as opposed to Scuf's mag key to remap, but there's no mag key to lose. And the Elite controller comes with a hard case, and you can readily find an Elite controller for $150 or less. So there's just a lot going for the Elite Series 1 from a value perspective. It's cheaper than the Prestige, and it does everything the Prestige does. If you really want the Scuf grip material, or you really want Scuf thumbsticks, you can buy those things extra, and depending on how much you pay for your Elite controller, you're probably going to be about the price of a Prestige. So really the biggest thing the Prestige gets you over the Elite Series 1 is color customization options, which, if that's your thing, no knock on you. This is a great controller for it. It's just a little expensive for what you're getting compared to what else is out there. I would also venture to guess that the Elite Series 2 from Microsoft is going to be even more of a value proposition than the Prestige. Now, I have not used an Elite 2 controller, so I can't say if it's going to be great or not, but if they truly just improved on what was good about the Elite 1 and just refined all of those things, then it's going to be a very good value proposition, I think. It will have 3 profiles that you can quickly switch between, has better wraparound grips, 3 stages for your hair lock triggers, adjustable thumbstick tension. That's kind of a huge thing for me. I'm really looking forward to that, to be able to, have more or less tension depending on what I'm playing or what I'm doing. USB-C charging, and it comes with a charging dock and a hard case, and it has all of those things that comes out to a price that's what I paid for this controller. No profile selectors, so you can't store multiple profiles. You can adjust the hair trigger locks, but in a more crude fashion. Micro USB charging, doesn't come with a hard case, doesn't come with a charging dock. But it's well made and it performs well. I just think the Elite 2 will perform just as well and do a lot more for what you're paying. I've seen some people online complain about stick drift issues. I haven't had any issues with stick drift, but everywhere I've seen people talking about stick drift, Scuf is responding all over the place saying that they're going to handle it. Whether they are or not, I don't know, but it seems that they're trying to get ahead of the problem. Alright, with all that said, that wraps up this video. If you found it helpful and you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about what you think of this controller, Scuf controllers in general, or Elite controllers, or really anything else. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.